2. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Virtual Tacoma Little Theater. My name is Chris Surface, and I'm the Managing Artistic Director here, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the second of our page-to-screen stories. Tonight, it's Buenas Noches Mamá, written and directed by Emily Cohen. We want to thank her for bringing the script to us. It's a program that brings local playwrights' scripts to life on the virtual stage. To let you know that coming up in February on the 20th of next month, we have Ana Maria Gerzon's Skin, which is another story, and it's based on part 1, a true story, the second part, a fictionalized story dealing with tattoo artistry. And it's a great story. We're looking forward to that cast and crew joining us next month. A few other great things coming up. Next week, we have Castmates and Spacies returning to the virtual screen. And then we also have our education program for both youth and adults starting up the week of January 18th. Make sure that you check out our website, www.tacomalittletheater.com, for all the latest great things coming up. It's the best way to know what's happening. We're so thankful that you've joined us here tonight. We so look forward to seeing you back in person sometime in 2021. Please sit back and enjoy Buenas Noches Mamá.
Imagine you have seen images of desaparecidos, the disappeared, as you have entered this theater space. This is a story of fiction, but it is based on history, on family, and truth. The faces of the disappeared, these are true. These are people. Now the stage is empty and the lights are off.
Me llamo Dominga Abadia Crespo. Tenía 37 años. El 11 de febrero de 1977, desaparecida.
Me llamo Guillermo Abel Almarza Gamboa, el 12 de agosto de 1977. Desaparecido.
Roberto, el 5 de mayo de 1968. Desaparecido.
Silvia, desaparecida.
Desaparecida.
In La Plata, Argentina, burned remains were found this week outside what used to be the Poza de Arana detention center. This is not the first find of its kind, though it is the first in La Plata. An investigation has begun, and officials who worked at the detention center are being called in to deliver testimonies on the mass grave that was found there. Researchers are hoping to be able to discover the identities, though DNA testing will be difficult to conduct due to the deteriorated conditions of the bones.
There were hundreds of detention centers located around the country that were used to interrogate Argentine prisoners during the Dirty War. Among the prisoners were terrorists and leftists, as well as teachers, students, and other civilians. At the detention centers, the prisoners, people who had been kidnapped, were tortured using electrical prods, racks, and other devices. Techniques including drowning, asphyxiation, rape, and starvation, among others. It is estimated that around 90% of prisoners were eventually killed and their remains disposed of.
It is unknown what the exact number of desaparecidos, people who disappeared, is, but different estimates place the actual number between 9,000 people, according to the government, and 30,000 people, according to civil rights organizations.
General Joseph Garana, nace el 15 de noviembre 1931. Oversaw operations as chief torturer of Arana Detention Center.
Capitán Alejandro Sosa nací el 13 de febrero de 1950, investigator at Arana Detention Center.
Teniente Primero Jorge Lorenzo, nací el 29 de julio de 1959, guard at Arana Detention Center.
Capitán Carlos Delgado, nací 31 de agosto 1949, investigator at Arana Detention Center.
At first, it seemed unthinkable, and then your senses go numb. What we did for the country.
I don't know how many I tortured.
We saw over 4,000 prisoners come through our doors.
Mothers, fathers, sisters, college students, they were all people's children.
They were all suspects. We had reason to hold all of them as part of the national reorganization process. We needed to help instill a sense of order, a sense of control.
Their screams pierced the air. Not just during the day when they're being questioned, always. The voices were always screaming.
I walked into a room and all eyes were on me. It was completely still. I ran an ordered prison and we did our job well.
I was effective, commended by General Garana on my techniques.
Captain Delgado was good. Not a fan of the equipment so much, but more the simple things. His hands, his feet, whatever was on his disposal. Though it was not unheard of for him to use the equipment, almost always they confessed.
But with General Garana, they always confessed.
I oversaw numerous night raids and brought in new prisoners.
Captain Sosa was eager to be good at his job, often requesting to be the lead investigator on cases involving young men and women.
I passed most pregnant women on to other investigators working at Arana. My wife and I could not have any children, and it was just too difficult for me to see.
It was brought to my attention that Captain Delgado and his wife were incapable of having children, and I called him to my office. Captain Delgado.
Si, senor.
Is it true that you and your wife cannot have children?
Si, General.
And you would like to give her a child?
I would.
And are you aware that we have prisoners who are currently pregnant?
Yeah.
The children will need homes. As you well know, Sophia Diaz died yesterday and left us a baby boy in our care.
What happened to the boy?
No sé. He will be disposed of.
Is that the only option?
Unless a military family offers to take care of him.
May I see him?
Of course, Captain Delgado. Lieutenant Lorenzo.
Lorenzo enters carrying the baby.
Sosa told me your wife has been very sick since she found out that she cannot have children.
Si, senor.
Does she come from a large family?
Paola has 6 siblings.
And you?
I have 3 brothers myself.
And you've exhausted all options?
The doctor says there is no chance.
None at all. Would you like to hold him?
Carlos nods and accepts the baby from Lorenzo.
He is healthy.
He just smiled at me.
You're natural.
You think so?
I do.
Oh, he's beautiful.
He's yours.
Lights out. Lights up on Elena.
I can't imagine having to raise the two of us. We were not what you would call the most calm of girls. We were always outside, climbing trees, riding our bikes, doing just about any physical activity we could think of. But what can you expect? Our mother taught us that just because we were girls, that didn't mean we had to simply sit inside, learn how to cook. So it was from her that we learned how to climb trees, how to play field hockey, but also how to cook. She taught us what we would need to know in order to lead successful, happy lives. I remember once, Sophia and I were out riding horses Father had rented for us for the day. Back then, there was more open land, and we had a trail that we loved riding. At the end of the trail, there was this castle. Oh, it was magnificent, beautiful, everything you could imagine. There was nothing better than riding up to the castle on horse. It seemed like a fantasy. Anyway, the horse that Sophia was riding was partially blind in one eye, which the owner had neglected to mention when we selected our horses. Well, as we were riding, a bunny hopped out onto the road from the horse's blind side, and he spooked. He jumped up and bucked a little, but just enough to catch Sophia by surprise and send her off her saddle, but her foot got stuck. The horse kept on jogging, even though Sophia was calling for it to stop. At first, I didn't know what was going on, but I looked back and I saw her horse behind mine and Sophia dragging behind it with her foot stuck in the saddle. I remember that even at the time, I couldn't decide if this was a scary situation or if it was funny. So I managed to call to her and ask if she needed help. And the look she gave me, I'll never forget. It was a mix between being a little scared, but also one of those looks that said, I can't believe this is happening to me. So she spent a good few minutes, or at least it felt like a few minutes, being dragged behind a horse, half laughing and half crying. I don't even remember if we got to the castle that day. What I remember was our father's reaction. He was so angry. And when he confronted the horse's owner, the owner gave him a full refund and promised it would never happen again. See, our father was a Greco-Roman wrestler and a weightlifter. He was a national champion and was even invited to the Olympics.
A young Sophia enters.
Did you see Papa's face?
See, it was hilarious.
Guy looked like he was ready to give Papa 100 pesos if you ask.
See, he probably would have. You should have seen your face.
It's not funny.
Oh, yes, it is.
I've never seen a horse buck like that.
I've never seen someone being dragged by a horse.
Well, my foot was stuck, trapped in the gear. There was nothing I could do. You should have helped me.
What could I have done?
Nothing, I suppose.
That's right. I can't wait to tell Mama.
You're not going to tell her, are you?
Are you kidding? Of course I am.
Oh my God, she's never going to let me live it down.
Don't worry, I won't either.
Leonardo enters.
Ready, girls?
See, Papa.
Papa, what would you have done if that man hadn't given us back our money?
I don't know.
Well, Papa would have picked him up by his shirt and told him he'd better give us the money back.
No, Papa would never do that. He would just warn him, tell him he had no choice.
You're both wrong. I would have told him that I have two very strong daughters who have made him do what I said.
You wouldn't have.
I would have told him that even I don't cross you two.
But you're not afraid of anything.
That's not true.
No, he's afraid of you when you wake up in the morning. We all are. But really, Papa, what are you afraid of?
I'm afraid of something happening to you, to either of you, or Mama. That's why I was so angry with him, because he put my daughter in danger.
I wasn't hurt.
But you could have been.
She's okay, Papa. I won't let anything happen to her.
Elena looks out for me, even if she did let my horse drag me.
Okay, girls, let's go home. You have quite the story to tell Mama.
Leonardo and Sophia exit.
After Sophia disappeared, our parents both got very sick. After only a few days of her disappearance, when it became clear that she wasn't just staying with friends, my mother was out marching with the other Madres de la Plaza de Mayo in front of the Casa Rosada as a show of protest and remembrance. Even today, she walks with the group every Thursday with a white shawl she made back in 1982. My mother eventually physically healed, though I don't think she will ever emotionally heal. But my father did not. He tried, and he tried to be there for the two of us, but it just wrecked him. There was no way around it. He died a year later. No physical illness, no horrible accident. One morning, he just didn't wake up.
As Elena exits, Pablo and Carlos enter and sit at a table. Pablo is looking at a newspaper.
Oi, Papa, have you seen this?
Okay,
It's been in the newspapers lately.
what has, Pablo?
It says that investigations are happening. Some kids are being tested to see if their parents are really their biological parents. This is awful. Who would even do that?
Why don't we talk about something else?
Why?
Because tu mama is making a wonderful dinner and we do not want to ruin it by talking about things like this.
Okay, but this man that they've got, Guarana, I think, he seems so something.
Don't make assumptions about people that you never knew.
See, pero look at the things he did.
Allegedly.
See?
And even if he did, those were different times.
That doesn't make...
Look, enough. Put it away.
Paula enters carrying a plate.
Ready for dinner.
Sí, por supuesto.
Sí, Mama.
I made your favorite empanadas de carne.
Gracias.
What were you two talking about when I came in?
We were talking about...
Just a little man-to-man discussion.
We were talking about the news about a man named Guarana. Have you seen it in the news at all?
Sí, hijo.
Look, enough. Let's eat dinner.
Why? Why can't we talk about it?
Because you don't know the whole story.
And you do.
I know that the papers won't tell you everything.
Okay, then you tell me. You worked for the military. You worked for the military. Did you know all this was happening? Did you know this, Guarana?
I think your father is right. We should eat before the empanadas get cold.
See, Pero, first answer my question. Papa.
Nothing is ever simple. Look, there's not only a right or a wrong. I mean, the times were very different. The military had to do something.
Are you saying that...
I'm saying that you should know the whole story before you make a final judgment. You remember your friend Marcos?
What about him?
Well, he told you a story about a boy at school who punched him, right? You told me about it. You telling me that we had to do something. And what happened?
It turned out that Marcos had been insulting the boy's mother and calling him names.
Exactly.
So, did you know Guarana?
No.
Paula and Carlos exit, leaving Pablo alone.
You watch the news, hear about children getting DNA tested because their parents might not actually be their parents. children who were illegally adopted during the dirty war. It's bringing up a lot of ugly memories for a lot of people, and I don't know. As a child or a young adult now, how do you decide whether to find out if your parents are murderers or not? I'd watch these things on TV with my friends or read about them in the papers, and we'd talk. How do you make that decision? But how do you live knowing that there's this possibility? How can you live with that question hanging over your head? We always talked, but we all knew. I knew that there was no way of knowing how you would choose unless you were in the situation yourself. And none of us were. None of us had the question put on us. None of us had to deal with the doubt. Her name was Sophia. Sophia Mariposa Diaz. She disappeared on March 11th, 1982. It's not an overly dramatic date, not a day before her birthday or anything, but it's the last day anyone saw her alive. March 11th, 1982. You know, 11 was my lucky number. They tell me she was about 8 months pregnant with me when she was taken. I had said I didn't want to know, said there was no way the parents I had known all my life could have been involved. I mean, they were there when I was sick, when I broke my arm in the 7th grade, when I finally gathered the courage to ask a girl on a date, and when I graduated. But it wasn't long before I couldn't handle the question looming over me. It wasn't so bad at first. At first, I threw the possibility out without a second thought. But the stories continued in the papers, and I could see my father getting nervous. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to find out if the mother who had cleaned me up after I got scraped, if the family I had always known wasn't my own. Is it possible to hate two people you've loved all your life?
Lights fade out on Pablo. Lights up on Sosa and Sophia. There is a table, a chair, and a small table with torture instruments on it. Sophia is sitting in the chair with her hands handcuffed behind her. She is pregnant.
What did you say? ¿Qué?
Me cago en la puta madre.
I'm sorry, my hearing must be going.
You heard what I said.
Huh. You're right.
Sosa backhand slaps her in the face.
I did. I didn't much like it. Too bad.
¿Qué?
That you will never see your child.
Sosa slaps her again.
What do you know about the attack on our weapons cache?
Nada.
The Monteneros attacked it. I want names.
I'm not a member of the Monteneros.
Yes, you are. I want answers.
I don't know anything.
Tell me.
I don't know.
Oh, la puta, I swear to God.
I can't tell you what I don't know.
You're a leftist organizing against the government.
I'm not doing that.
Mentirosa, I don't believe you. Who was involved? Give me names.
Sosa moves to the small table.
Last chance.
I don't have anything to give you.
Give me information.
I can't. I'm not.
The scene freezes. Sophia steps forward.
I'm gonna die. I know this. If I give him whatever information he wants, I will still die because I will be labeled a terrorist. If I don't give him anything, I will die. People don't live through this. I think I would have made a good mother. Diego. We met in the Plaza de Mayo walking with Las Madres. We got to talking and started meeting each other at cafes, then dinners. They say you shouldn't date people who are too similar to yourself, but he was perfect for me. He disappeared 5 months ago. He wasn't as active as me, but He was vocal and he spoke his thoughts. As soon as he disappeared, I distanced myself from the scene because in an instant, it was real. It was personal. I was pregnant with his baby and he was gone, and I couldn't risk the only connection to Diego I had left. But it felt wrong to abandon a cause I still do feel strongly about. And at 6 months pregnant, I went walking again. And suddenly I wanted everyone to know that I too had lost someone. Not my son or my grandson, but the father of my child. Diego's mother and I walked, holding each other's hands as we went. And now, 8.5 months pregnant, and here I am. I can see my mother walking with Diego's mother, both crying and wearing the white shawls with their names on them. I wish I would have given birth before. I wanted him or her to be raised by my family. We talked names, about what we would name the baby. I guess none of it matters. I love my baby. Even though we've never met, I would never do anything to risk the life of my child, but I don't know what to do. He is going to kill me. I don't have any of the information he wants. I've never belonged to a terrorist group, but he is going to kill me.
The scene resumes.
I want information.
I have no information to give you.
I know you've been walking with Las Madres.
But that isn't a crime.
Plotting against the government is. Stealing weapons from a weapons cache is.
That wasn't me.
It was an act of terrorism.
Sosa lifts an electric prod from the table.
No puedo.
Enough.
Por favor.
You had your chance.
Just, before you kill me, just let me.
The sound of the electric prod can be heard. We hear Sophia screaming. Lights up on Maria.
I love Argentina. Argentina is my home. It's my true love. There are things the government has done that I'm not proud of, but I don't love this land any less. My family moved here from Europe. My mother's family from Spain and my father's from Italy. When I was growing up, my friends talked about traveling the world. I was content to travel around Argentina or stay in Buenos Aires. Some people say the city's too big, but it always felt right to me. Of course, I don't live there anymore, but it's in my heart, and I come back whenever I can, which is not as often as I would like. My mother and sister are still there, and I will always think of it as home. Just not my only one. But I think about Argentina, my family there, and Sophia. It's been over 25 years since she disappeared. And sometimes I forget in a way. I expect to hear her voice, see her when I come to visit my family. But she's not here. She's gone. And I keep getting hit by that realization. The day she disappeared, I'll remember that day for the rest of my life. I know it sounds cliche, it sounds self-centered. What about the rest of her family? But it's true. She was my best friend.
Maria watches as Diego and Sophia enter. They enter on a couch.
Ti amo.
Sí, eh?
Marry me.
¿Qué?
Marry me after the protest tomorrow.
You're serious? Oh, Diego, promise me you'll give me this ring in the future.
So you're saying no?
I'm saying that I don't want to get married now, not until after our country's at peace. I'm saying that I love you. Te amo con todo mi corazón.
But you don't want to marry me?
I want to live with you, love you, have a baby with you, but I don't want to get married quite yet.
Have a child?
Yes,
I love you.
I know.
You're beautiful. What time is the protest tomorrow?
Oh, it starts at 11, though. They want some people to show up early and help set up things.
Yeah, we can show up around 10.
Yeah, we won't rest until it's done.
You really won't stop until all of this is over, will you? Promise me one thing. Promise that we'll leave if anything gets out of hand.
At the protest?
Yes, and just in general, I don't want anything to happen to you.
Nothing's going to happen. We'll be careful.
Everyone tries to be careful, but it's getting more and more dangerous.
It's always been dangerous.
I know, let's just be careful. I don't want to lose you.
You won't. We'll be careful. We need to keep talking, to keep protesting, but see, we'll be careful.
Gracias.
De nada. If you don't want to go tomorrow, we don't have to.
It's not that I don't want to. Not going feels like giving up. But I'm just starting to wonder how much good our protests do.
You have to believe they raise awareness, that they do something, otherwise you'll go crazy.
Sí, yo sé.
I'm here for you.
Diego freezes and Sophia steps forward.
Diego disappeared only 3 days later. I keep wondering if there was something we could have done differently that would have prevented it all, but I know that's not true. But the thing is, for as much as Diego was involved in protesting, I was involved even further. I organized, I spoke out, I raised my voice.
Sophia reaches for Diego's hand and leads him off stage. Maria watches as they exit.
Sophia had a boyfriend, Pedro. At the time, he was the love of her life, though in our 20s, who didn't have a love of our life? But he was a great person. He loved her and doted on her and played football. Sometimes he would take her to the park and they would bring a ball, just kick it between them. He used to tease her, saying she was more competitive than any other person he played against. They were wonderful together. They'd been together for 1.5 years when he died. To be honest, I don't remember exactly what building he was in. He was in the elevator with 3 other people when a bomb went off. Someone had put a bomb on the elevator and killed them all. I was with her when he was told. At first, she did not believe it. She thought it was impossible because he was supposed to be at home that day. But then the pain in her heart wouldn't stop. She knew it was true. Up until then, I had never seen her so distraught, like there was no hope in the world. But she took her sorrow and she started becoming more politically active. Sophia met Diego at a protest only a month or so later. At first, they were only friends. Sophia was still too hurt by Pedro's death. And Diego, bless his soul, he was patient, was another shoulder for her to cry on. He never pushed too hard. He respected her pain. Instead, they became best friends. She would come home and call me saying Diego was making her stronger and Diego helped her through it. First, I was a little jealous of him, but I knew he was what she needed. I could see the way they looked at each other. But Sophia felt as if going out with another man would be betraying Pedro. And so she and Diego grew closer and closer on a pure emotional level. They talked about their pasts, what they wanted in their futures, anything. Sophia told me once they sat outside of his apartment for 4 hours, just talking. When they started to actually date, their relationship was so strong because it had been built on such a solid emotional foundation. They made each other happy, and they made each other strong. What they had was truly amazing.
Lights fade out on Maria. Lights up on young Carlos and Sosa. Sosa is smoking a cigarette.
¿Quieres?
Sí.
She's strong.
Who?
This new one, Sophia.
Not giving you any information?
Nada. Pero she pleads for her life, for her baby, but still.
Oh, she's pregnant.
See.
Is she that different from all the others?
She's quiet. The first time, all it took was the electric prod and she screamed, but by the second day, she was quiet.
Wait, did you?
See, she's beautiful. Even more beautiful when she's naked.
I've never understood you.
What?
What you get out of having sex with the prisoners? What's so appealing about it?
Control. Emotional and physical control.
Well, if it works.
See, it does. You should try it.
I prefer the more traditional methods.
I know.
Sosa begins to exit.
Oh, before I forget, Natalia wants to know if you and Paolo want to come over for dinner tonight. Milanesa is her specialty.
Por supuesto.
10:30?
See.
Back to work.
Sosa exits, and Carlos smokes the rest of the cigarette in silence before putting it out on the heel of his boot and exiting. Lights up on Elena, who was preparing dinner.
It's funny, you know, what memories come back and when they come back. Something as simple as cracking an egg over a bowl, and suddenly there are car lights in your eyes and you're stunned. And then the egg is dripping down your hands onto the counter and it's back to reality. But as time goes by, the memories come by less and less, and they're less violent and sudden. But the memories feel like they're fading, and I'm not sure if I'm just coming to terms or if I'm forgetting. I hope not. I'd rather be surprised by memories and still remember.
Elena watches as a young Sophia walks on stage.
Papa, there are 2 men at the door looking for a man named Moreno.
Sophia freezes, and Elena sits at a table. Maria walks on and joins Elena.
Leonardo was home early that night. I think a neighbor had mentioned that there had been robberies nearby, and he decided to leave work a little earlier than normal. It was a Wednesday, and there were 3 of us, Elena, Sophia, and I, doing our homework. It was nice, something we often did after school. Their parents always said I was welcome, so almost every day after school, the 3 of us would spend time together, sometimes doing homework, sometimes not. To be honest, I think we talked more about doing homework than we actually spent time doing it. When someone knocked on the door, we were surprised. They had a gate outside the house. Most people just waited outside the gate, so it was weird that someone just came straight up to the door. But Sophia answered it. Both Elena and I refuse to stand up.
Sophia unfreezes. Leonardo enters and goes to Sophia.
KNS.
No sé.
And they only ask for Moreno?
Sí, papá.
Yeah, hija. Go back to your friends.
Leonardo exits and Sophia freezes.
I think my father thought that Sophia would just walk back to us, but instead she lingered and tried to hear what he was telling the man. It was clear to her that there was something wrong after all. There was no one named Moreno anywhere on our street. So she watched there while my father picked up the men by their collars, one man in each hand. I'm not exaggerating. He was a weightlifter. He was that strong. One of the men ran across the street to where there was a construction lot and began throwing rocks at my father.
The other man pulled a gun on Leonardo. He was pointing it directly at him, threatening to shoot him. One of the rocks hit Leonardo in the ear, and blood started dripping down his neck. You know ears, how they bleed a lot?
Lucia, Sophia's mother, walks across the stage.
When Lucia walked across, she saw a man holding her husband at gunpoint and blood dripping down Leonardo's neck. She told him to lower the gun, to put it down and leave them alone.
Sophia was watching the entire time. She never left. I don't know if my parents ever knew that, but she watched the entire thing. She watched as mi mama put one hand across her eyes and held the other hand out, telling the man to give her the weapon. She just kept saying, "Give me the gun," and just kept saying, he kept saying, "I'm going to shoot you."
Give me the gun. Give me the gun.
And the man kept saying, I'm going to
shoot you.
Don't come any closer.
Don't come any closer.
And get away.
Get away.
But Lucia was patient. I can't imagine how Leonardo felt, the gun pointed at his wife with nothing he could do but without risking their lives.
Well, and finally, as my mother just kept getting closer and closer, he gave her the gun. The man just dropped it into her hand and then ran. Sophia ran away from the window so that our parents would never know that she had watched.
Sophia runs across the stage and exits.
When she came back to us, she was shaking. She kept saying that Lucia had disarmed the man, that the robbers had been to the house. At first, we thought she was joking, and we told her to stop lying. But when we saw how anxious she was,
we knew she was not making this story up. We all went out of the room to find my mother cleaning the blood off of my father's neck. Sophia's face was white, like all the blood had been scared away. Our mother told us repeatedly that we were not to hate the two men, that we had to forgive them. It was the time that people were desperate. I couldn't see that. I hated those two men for what they had put my family through. But Sophia found herself capable of understanding the situation, and she listened to our mother. Sophia started being more aware of what was happening, started seeing what the world was doing to people.
It changed Sophia in a way that no one could have ever predicted.
They exit, and Pablo enters.
I just found out I have an aunt. Not only do I have an aunt, but I have cousins and a grandmother. When I lived with Carlos and Paula, I always wanted a big family. I wanted to be able to have family dinners and get-togethers. They both had many siblings, but they had grown distant in the years before I was born. Now I'm kind of happy about that. I don't have more people that I need to cut out of my life. But now, with Elena, I look like her. We have the same nose, and she says my eyes are like Sophia's. I'm addicted to learning all there is to know about her. When I first found out, I wanted to be away from everyone. I stayed in my apartment, and I didn't go to work. I sat on my couch, watched TV, and ate only empanadas from the store beside my apartment building. But then I agreed to meet Elena for dinner and to talk. we didn't eat anything. I'm not even sure we ordered anything. She told me who my father was, where they had met, the basics. I was captivated and yet sick to my stomach. I couldn't stay long. My brain couldn't handle it all. She gave me her phone number and her address, saying that if I needed anything to call or stop by. I was polite and I said thank you without the thought of going to visit her anytime soon. I didn't even make it the entire night. I went home, tried to watch TV, tried to read, to work, to do anything but think about the family I had never known. I went over at 2 a.m. and stood outside her apartment's main door, not moving. I had made it all the way there and was thinking about leaving again, changing my mind. But I couldn't bring myself to turn away. I needed to know. I pressed the buzzer and she let me in, no questions asked. She hadn't even sounded like she was sleeping.
Elena enters and moves towards Pablo.
When she opened the door to let me in, she looked at me and gave me a smile. Such a sad smile, like she knew why I was there and how I was feeling. I remember we were quiet as she led me to the elevator. I couldn't say anything, but as soon as we were inside the elevator and the door closed, I looked down to the ground and said, Elena, I want to know everything. Por favor, I need to know everything. I felt her hand on my shoulder and she said, Por supuesto.
¿Quieres un poco de café?
No, gracias.
I cannot get over how much your eyes look like hers.
Were they dark brown like mine or lighter?
Dark brown, almost black, like yours, but sí, a little darker.
Do you have many pictures of her?
Sí, por supuesto.
I mean, pictures that I could keep. I want to be able to look into her eyes. I know that sounds silly, but...
It's okay. I understand.
I've been wondering how different I would be if none of this had happened.
Oh, don't do that to yourself.
Can't help it. I'm overwhelmed with all these emotions. It's like making up for a lifetime, for a person, and trying to make up for it with stories. It's not the same, but it's all I have.
It's okay. There are a lot of wonderful stories that people can tell you.
Will you tell me one?
Sí, pero you'll have to be more specific.
Tell me something funny about growing up with Sophia.
Okay. When Sophia was only a month or so old and I was 4, I dropped her down the stairs.
Wait, you just dropped her?
As I hear it, I was holding her and our mother was at the bottom of the stairs. I couldn't carry her anymore and I was asking my mother to take her, but before anything else could happen, she slipped from my grip and went tumbling down the stairs.
Did she get hurt?
She cried for a little while, but that was it. Babies are resilient, you know.
That's what people keep telling me.
It's true. She and I were not the most quiet of girls. She played field hockey. I played tennis. We would come home tired from practice and I would complain about my sore shoulder and she would show me her shins. Sophia was a competitive girl, not overly so, but competitive in a nice way. She wanted to win, but she also wanted to become friends with her opponents. Even in practice, she would really push herself. And each time she would come back home with 1 or 2 new bruises.
I guess I get my athleticism from her then.
Creo que sí. Did you play sports growing up?
Football, like all the other boys. I tried tennis and I was decent, but more of a team sports kind of person.
Mm-hmm. River or Boca?
River.
Bueno. Our family supports River. My father, your grandfather, was on the wrestling team while he was alive.
What was his name?
Leonardo.
Leonardo. I like it.
He would have been so happy to see you.
You think so?
Did you see the son of Sophia? He would have loved it. Sí. Creo que sí.
I wish I had met him.
I know, yo sé. But he is looking down on you right now from heaven, and he sees the man that you've become.
Really?
He watches over us. He does. I believe that, yes.
I like that.
For me, it eases the pain. I think of the two of them smiling and gazing down on us. They protect us from there.
Do you think that she's been watching me my whole life?
Without a doubt.
The two smile quietly for a moment and exits as Carlos enters.
Every firstborn son in my family has been a member of the Argentine military. I do not know how many generations go back, but as a child, I knew that I was not going to break that tradition. We do not have an overt love for violence, simply a love for our country and the desire to protect it. I love my country just as much as I love my family. And just as I would die to protect my family, I would die to protect my country. Now, I did not always agree with what went on or what my orders were, but I followed them as any good soldier would. And for a long time, the army was my life. I found brothers and friends within the rank. But when I met Paola, it was another love that I had never felt before. A desire to make her happy, to give her a good life, to be with her forever. You know, I remember one night asking her what she wanted the most, what would make her the happiest. And she answered, una familia. And I vowed then to give that to her. I understood her need to protect someone, to have someone to care for. And I was not going to prevent her from having that. And then something happened that I could never have been prepared for. Paola went to the doctor asking why she had not been able to get pregnant, and the doctor said, it was me. Is me. I am the reason that we could not have children. I could not believe it. The thing that we wanted the most, that would make us the happiest, was not going to happen. And it was because of me. I had let her down in a way that I had never let anyone down. And the disappointment was clear in her eyes. She stayed in bed for days, wouldn't get up. I was willing to do anything to make my Paola happy because watching her fade away was too much for me. She didn't eat, she didn't go out. She was dead to the world because the world had betrayed her. And I could not bear feeling like I too had betrayed her. And so I did what any husband would do. I did what I had to in order to get her a child. I did not think about what was happening. I thought only of my wife and my country. What we were doing, all of us, was for our country. But instead of allowing a child to go to another family that could not care for her or letting the child be killed, I decided to bring it to Paola. That little boy saved my wife. And for that, I am forever grateful. When I gave him to her, her blue eyes just lit up. Like when the sun hits the tigre, just right. It was beautiful.
Lights fade out on Carlos. Lights up. On a portion of a cafe, Maria and Elena are sitting. They're in their mid-20s. Sophia enters.
Hola.
Hola, Sophia.
¿Cómo estás?
Sophia sits down silent.
¿Qué? Sophia, what is it?
Diego?
Is he okay? Oh my God.
No, he.
No, then what? Is something wrong?
I'm pregnant. Estoy embarazada.
You're pregnant.
Sí.
What are you going to do?
Nothing?
You're going to raise the child?
Por supuesto.
Will you be okay?
What have you told Mama?
Not yet. I just found out. I'm worried about what she'll say.
She'll be supportive.
Sí, pero she'll never let me out of the house.
Okay.
But she's been anxious ever since Diego disappeared.
Anxious. She's paranoid.
She has every reason to. She's worried about you.
I know, but maybe I should just not tell her.
You can't not tell her.
You need to tell her you'll need help.
I know. I want the best for this baby. I want to give him or her the best life I can. I'm just scared. How do you bring a child into a world like this?
You have us. You have family. The child will be safe.
I know. I don't want to have to explain to him or her what happened to its father.
Don't worry about that yet. The time will come, and when it does, we'll figure something out. But for now, concentrate on the present.
You will need to stop protesting.
I already did, after Diego went missing. All I do is walk with Las Madres. It keeps me sane.
Makes you feel like you're not alone.
See.
You'll need to stop participating at all. No writing letters and no walking with Las Madres, nothing.
I know.
Anything else, you're putting the child in danger.
The baby's already in danger with the way this country is right now. Children can't have normal lives when the people they know could just disappear at any time. The country's a mess. And I have to choose.
Step back and allow others to fight while you raise the child. You know, they don't simply let pregnant women off the hook. They don't care if you're pregnant or not. They just want you off the streets.
I know. You'll see.
Until the baby is born, stay at home, read, learn as much as you can, and you can come back and fight when the child is safe.
But once I have the child, I cannot risk my life. I mean, it wouldn't be fair for the baby to lose both parents.
You think like a mother already.
See, I guess so.
You're pregnant. Congratulations.
Gracias. And you're an aunt. I want you to consider being my baby's godmother.
Me?
See, you're my best friend. I can't think of anyone else I'd rather have.
You don't need to think about it. Of course I will.
The baby is going to be beautiful.
And stubborn.
Very stubborn. Very spoiled.
An officer enters into the cafe, his eyes scanning around the room. So Sophia sees him and stands. Maria and Elena stand after her.
Let's go tell Mama.
Bueno.
Buen día.
Buen día.
Elena, Maria, and Sophia exit. The officer looks after them. Lights fade out. Lights up on Pablo, sitting at a table with papers in front of him.
I've been reading through these testimonials from the National Commission on the Disappeared. I'm not sure why. I think I thought it would help, but now I'm not so sure. Some of the things I'm finding, the people I talk to, it's so unjustified. I thought it might help me to understand, but I think I was wrong. I read reports and they give information that I don't know what to do with. Thorough investigation has determined that the military's intelligence officers used methods of torture that pushed the limits on how much a person could withstand before eventually dying. Prisoners were often kept chained to a wall with a hood over their eyes. The Nazi-like torture methods included asphyxiation, drowning, and a picana electricia, an electric prod that would be placed onto extremely sensitive areas. There were also officers who preferred sexual perversions such as Forcing mice into women's vaginas. Testimonies. Esteban Torres.
Esteban steps forward.
If when I was set free, someone had asked me, did they torture you a lot? I would have said that they tortured me for the whole of the 3 months. And if I were asked the same question today, I would say that I have been tortured all these years.
Esteban and Pablo look at each other. Esteban steps back.
Natalia Mendez, wife of Javier Mendez.
Natalia Mendez steps forward.
At 12:30 a.m. on March 24th, 1975, our house in Villa Ribera, Indante and Cordoba was broken into by men in uniform carrying rifles. They identified themselves as belonging to the army and were accompanied by youths in casual dress. They trained their guns on us while they stole many of our possessions, which the uniformed men carried outside. They did not talk to each other, but they communicated by snapping their fingers. They looted our house for over 2 hours, and before the raid, there had been a blackout in all of the neighboring streets. My husband, a trade union official, my son David, and myself were abducted. I was freed the next day. My son was freed sometime later after being held in La Ribera camp. Our house was completely destroyed. My husband's body was found later with 7 bullet wounds in his throat.
Natalia Mendez smiles sadly at Pablo and then steps back, standing next to Esteban.
Carmen Bianchi, wife of Dr. Bianchi.
Carmen Bianchi steps forward.
The last time I heard my husband's voice was on the 28th of June. They always took him first to the torture chamber, and then me. This particular time, they did the opposite. In the middle of my interrogation, they brought in my husband, telling them that if he wouldn't talk, they would kill me. They began to apply the electric shocks to me so that he could hear my cries. And he called out to me, "My love, I love you. I never dreamt they would bring you into this." His words enraged them. His last phrase was cut short because they applied the electric prod to him. They untied me and threw me into my cell. They were driven wild by him. His interrogation was unending. All at once, there was a single, piercing, heart-rending shriek. It still resounds in my ears. I will never be able to forget it. It was his last cry, and suddenly there was silence. My husband died on June 28th, a victim of their tortures.
Carmen Bianchi moves to Pablo and hugs him, then steps back and watches Pablo with the others.
I see them now, even though I've only read their testimonies. I see them in my dreams. I imagine them interacting with me or with my mother. I don't know why. They never would have met her or me, but it doesn't seem to matter in my dreams. I don't think I'll find the answers in testimonies or in reading. I don't even really know what the question I'm asking is. I want to walk with Las Madres. I think it would help me more than any of this.
Pablo looks at the papers and pushes them away from him. Lights out. Lights up on Sosa and Garana.
So, No information then?
Nothing.
Really? Well then.
What's next?
Well, she's pregnant.
I noticed.
Don't be sarcastic with me.
Lo siento, señor.
So, quiet. How quiet?
Scary quiet. I've never seen someone as quiet as her. She's silent, almost.
Almost.
I've managed to get some other sounds out of her.
Ah, I see.
Sí, señor.
Have you pushed her to her limits?
Sí.
Go past them.
On your orders.
But do not hurt the baby.
Señor, what should I do with the child?
I will deal with that.
And once it is born?
I have it under control.
Understood.
There was an attack on our weapons cache. Find out if she was involved. If she wasn't, find out who was.
Yes, sir. What group?
I'm tired of constant terrorist activity. I want them disbanded, and we can start with the prisoners we have. We'll get the information.
And if they know nothing?
Kill them. You are dismissed.
Lights out. Lights up on Pablo.
I don't know what part of me thought this was a good idea, that thought it was the way to get answers. I don't know if I thought I would simply knock on the door, ask a question, and they would tell me everything. The lights were on at the house, so I knew someone was home. When I first got there, I stood there and I wasn't sure if I should go to the door or not. And while I was standing there staring at what used to be my home, I saw the light in the living room go on. I saw a shadow through the drawn curtains and I watched as it sat down. I decided then to walk to the door and knock on it.
Pablo knocks.
When I knocked, I could see someone look through the peephole and then step away, and it was dark again. I couldn't believe it. How could they not come to the door? Didn't they want to see me? On some level, they must have missed me, right? So why not answer the door? Were they ashamed? Hola! I want to know. I want to know why you took me from her. Why you took her. Were you ever going to tell me? I want to know if it was hard for you to look at me, the baby you stole. Carlos! Did you kill her? Did you kill Sophia yourself? Was she allowed to hold me? Was she even given the chance to see me before you took me away? Why? I want to know why. A la puta, tell me. I want to know. Did you even love me? I want to believe that on some level they loved me. That their love for me changed who they were, who they are, were. They were my parents, and no, they were never my parents. I had a mother, and she was taken from me. I was taken from her.
Pablo?
Celeste?
The maid opens the door.
Pablo, tu familia, they aren't here.
They're not my family.
They went out to dinner. I'm the only one here, and I'm just cleaning. I don't know when they'll be back. Would you like to wait inside?
No, gracias.
Would you like to leave a message for them?
No. Gracias, Celeste.
De nada.
Celeste exits, and Pablo sits down. A passing of time. Carlos and Paula enter and do not notice Pablo.
Hola.
Pablo,
Hola.
¿cómo estás?
What are you doing here?
Waiting for you.
Why?
Carlos, how are you?
Alive?
Why are you here?
Because I wanted to see you. Because I miss you and I don't know what to do with that.
Oh, Pablo, we missed you too.
Then why haven't you called? You haven't even tried to get a hold of me.
We thought you might not want to hear from us.
Relax, son.
Son? Really?
Yes, hijo.
I'm not your son. You stole me. I was never yours.
You were ours from the day you were born.
Why? Por qué? Why is that?
You needed una familia, and we could give you one. A loving one, better than many others, hijos.
That's not true. I shouldn't have needed you.
You cannot understand.
Primate. What I don't understand is being raised by people who are not my real parents. By a man who could have killed mi madre.
Pablo.
It's true. I don't know anything. I don't know if Papa Carlos killed her. I don't know if you just offered to give me a family. I don't know how you could just go along with it.
I went along with it because it was my job. Because it is what needed to happen.
How can you say that? How can you say that thousands needed to die? That's never true.
Sometimes people have to do things that they don't agree with.
But that's not the case here. He agrees with it. Look at him. He believes it was the right thing to do.
The times called for action. And whether it was the right path or not, I will stand by the government.
Did you kill her?
How could you ask me that?
Did you kill her?
Of course he didn't kill her.
I'm asking him. I'm asking this man standing in front of me, if this man I've called me Papa for all my life, I'm asking if he killed her.
I'm not going to answer that.
Did you kill her?
I refuse to answer that question.
Carlos exits, with Pablo staring after him.
Her name was Sofia Diaz. What happened to her?
Does it matter?
Of course it matters.
Would it change anything? Would it change the life we gave you? Te amo, Pablo.
Paula exits, following after Carlos. Paula can be heard asking,
Did you?
to Carlos. Pablo does not hear her.
He refuses to tell me? Is it that he can't remember? Or are there just too many people that went through those doors that he can't remember her face, her name? Or does he think that I can't handle the answer? After the last few weeks, I feel like I can at least handle being told the truth. If he didn't kill her, wouldn't he have just said that? Okay, Pablo, breathe. I don't know what I wanted to get out of talking to them other than an answer to the question that is plaguing me. I don't like that I think he could have killed Sophia. He killed others while working at the detention center. Does it really matter if it was him or someone else that killed her? Yes, because that changes everything. It means he looked at me when I was younger, told me he loved me, but really he had killed the woman who was my mother. He took me from her. There's nothing heroic about it. He didn't save an orphan child. Or maybe he cooperated with the people who killed my mother. That's just as bad as killing her. Not stopping her death is like killing her. I miss them. Paul looks sad, more frail than usual, and he looks tired. Part of me wants to say that it's all right and go back to them so that I can have a family again. I miss the talks at breakfast, drinking wine and talking about our days. But I can't just ignore what's happened. I don't know what to do.
Pablo exits, and Lucia enters. Lucia is older now. Elena enters and goes to her.
Mama, they found him. The grandmothers of the Plaza de Mayo, they found Sophia's son.
Eh?
You were right. I gave them all the information we had and the hairbrush with Sophia's hair. They took the DNA and figured out where she was taken.
Where was she taken?
The facility in La Plata.
And they found her. They found Sophia.
They found her son.
Where is he?
He was adopted by a military family, by a man who worked at that place.
Is he okay? Does he know?
He is fine. As far as I know, he has not been informed about us, about Sophia.
Sophia had a son. And they found him. They really found him. I can't believe it.
She had a son. Sophia had a son, a boy. Sophia and Diego's child. He is alive.
What does he look like? Do you know?
I've requested a picture, and soon we can meet him. If he wants to meet us. I bet he looks like her, looks like Sophia. I never thought this would happen. Mama, they found him.
I know, I know.
Do you think she got to meet him? I mean, when he was born, did Sophia get to hold him?
I think, I don't know.
But we get to meet him. He can become a part of the family. And we teach him about Sophia. She can know that he is finally with us. Oh, just as it was always meant to be.
Oh, Benito, my grandson is finally coming home.
I miss her. Oh, Mama, I miss her so much.
Me too, yeah. Yo también.
I still don't know what to do, how to act. I don't know how to be okay.
Shh. Come here.
I miss her. I was her sister and I wasn't there. I couldn't protect her.
Oh, there was nothing you could have done. Oh, she believed in what she was doing and believed that they could make a difference.
She was amazing.
She was.
His name is Pablo. Pablo Diaz. It just sounds right.
The two hold hands and exit. Pablo is alone on stage, sitting at a table with an opened envelope in front of him. He lights a cigarette, then decides against it. Finally, Carlos enters.
Hola.
Carlos lights a cigarette.
¿Qué pasa?
Pablo hands him the letter. Carlos reads the letter, then puts the paper down.
You know what this is?
It's nothing.
Please don't lie to me. I know what it is.
They do not know. They're wrong. I will talk to somebody about this.
Carlos begins to walk from the room. Pablo moves in front of Carlos, thrusting the papers against his chest.
Es la verdad. It's real.
Carlos takes the paper and rips it into
It's a
two.
lie.
Pablo snatches the pieces of paper.
You're wrong.
How could you possibly know?
The paper says everything.
The paper says nothing.
Did you even read it?
There is no way to know the truth.
See? I thought that too. So I had them test my DNA.
What?
You know, even then I stood by you.
Yes, you should. I'm your father.
No, you're not.
Prada.
What? What are you going to tell me? That you weren't a torturer? That you didn't kill people? Did you like it?
Be quiet.
No.
Carlos grabs Pablo by the shirt.
You do not know anything.
I know enough. I know you worked there.
I have worked for the military since before you were born. You knew that.
But I didn't know you worked there.
So?
Ay, Dios, you tortured people.
There were hundreds of terrorist attacks every year.
I don't care.
Assassinations, bombings, kidnappings. I mean, it was putting everyone in the country at risk.
Stop.
The whole country was slipping. Control had to be restored. And
Stop talking.
Something was done. You know, there were terrorists ruining people's lives.
Not all of them. There were innocent people.
But most were not.
You were the one who was ruining people's lives. You're no better than a terrorist.
Of course I am. I helped prevent destruction. I saved people's lives.
By killing people. You're just a pig. Did you kill people?
Yes.
You tortured people.
I helped save our country. That does not mean that I enjoyed it.
Is that supposed to make me feel better? How could you do this to me?
I did nothing to you.
You lied to me all my life. I can't even look at you.
Pablo, I have not lied to you. You are my son, and I love you.
Please don't say that.
It's true. I would give my life for you.
Just be quiet. I can't believe you. What you've done.
What? Think about what the country would have become had we not done anything.
Shut up about the country. I'm not your son and you're not my father. You're just a killer.
Pablo walks past him and begins to leave.
Don't do something that you're going to regret.
Pablo stops.
Do you regret what you've done?
There is silence. Then Pablo exits. Carlos looks after him as lights fade out. Lights up on Maria.
When Galtieri, the former president, was arrested on charges of kidnapping, torture, and murder, I finally thought there was a chance for some closure, some feeling that something was getting done. You know what happened? He died within the year of a heart attack. He didn't deserve that easy of a death. When I found out he had pancreatic cancer, I thought, finally, some form of justice. But no, he dies of a heart attack. Pain for a few minutes and then death. He didn't suffer the way he made others suffer. There was a commission, trials. No matter who is arrested, I don't feel there can ever be any resolution for us. For the people who lost loved ones, nothing can bring them back. I miss her. I miss seeing her. I miss her laugh. I miss everything about her. Well, that's not true. I don't miss the orchestra concerts she used to take me to. Sophia loved them. She could sit and just listen for the entire concert without getting distracted at all. I'd look over sometimes and there she'd be, still, her eyes closed, and a slight smile on her face. Meanwhile, I would sit there fidgeting, not because I didn't like the music, but because my mind would get distracted. I simply could not sit still for that long. I tried to listen to a symphony yesterday. My kids thought I was insane. I put it on, turned up the volume a little, and sat down. It was Mozart, Symphony 41. I sat there, my eyes closed. I tried to just listen to the music, to find the place in myself that Sophia found every time we went and heard an orchestra. Well, after about 5 minutes, I was up and I started doing the dishes while I listened to the music. Then I started a load of laundry, put dinner in the oven, and then began grading tests. I tried, but Mozart just didn't captivate me like he captivated Sophia.
Maria smiles and exits as Paula enters.
We saved him. Without us, he would have suffered. He would have died. They could have simply killed him or not allowed Carlos and I to adopt him. He could have been raised by an abusive family. But we adopted him. We loved him. We cared for him. We gave him a proper family. When Carlos and I were married, we had, and he had risen to the rank of captain within the army, we decided it was time for our family. And we couldn't. He couldn't. And the day I found out that he could not give me children was, up to that point, the worst day in my life. There's nothing I could compare to the way that I felt then. And then one day, Carlos came and he knelt by my side and said that he could fix it all. That there was a baby that would die. He would be lost if we didn't adopt it. Boy. I mean, it's what we always wanted. Baby to fix our problems, a baby to save us. But first we had to save that baby. We named him Pablo after my grandfather. I loved him from the moment he entered our lives, and I have never stopped. And now I'm losing my son, my baby boy. And I've always had his best interest at heart, and that won't stop now. Carlos, he never spoke to me about how he came upon Pablo, how he happened into our lives, and I never asked. Worst day in my life. Worst day in my life was when Pablo left us. I would have killed to have a child of my own, and now my own child was gone.
Lights fade on Paula. Lights up. Sophia is on the floor looking ragged and unhealthy, though still pregnant. Sosa enters smoking the last of a cigarette. He puts his cigarette out with his fingers and flicks the butt at Sophia.
Get up. Ahora! Bien. Now, turn around.
He steps behind her, putting one hand on her shoulder.
Where are the Montoneros planning to attack next?
No sé.
Wrong! Try again. Are they in collaboration with the ERP?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
He moves his hand to her face, turning her to look at him.
Really?
I don't know anything.
Wrong.
I'm not a member of the Montaneros.
Again.
He slaps her face and grabs her face again.
I'm not a member of the Montaneros.
He pulls her close to him.
No.
Pulls her to him, kisses her, then yanks her hair.
I want to know who organized the attack.
No sé.
Pulls a gun, pressing it against her face.
Give me information.
I can't.
Ahora dámelo.
I don't know anything.
Pushes her to her knees with the gun.
You're not going to live long enough to see your child.
No.
Where are the weapons being stored?
If I knew, I would tell you. Show mercy.
You don't deserve mercy.
Sosa pulls the trigger. The gun clicks, but there is no bullet. The cartridge is empty, a mock execution. Sophia falls to the ground, incapable of controlling herself.
Puta. Now then.
Sosa kneels beside Sophia. The lights start to fade, grabbing her face in his hand and moves his other hand towards her pants. Sophia screams, and then it changes.
Puta que lo parió! She's giving birth!
The lights are gone, and it is silent. Lights up on Pablo.
I imagine her looking down from heaven and smiling because she is so proud. She watches me walk with Las Madres and knows that I love her and that I miss her. I did not know it was possible to miss someone I've never met, but she is my mother, and I miss her. Put together this amazing image of the woman she was. She was kind, thoughtful, stubborn, maybe even more stubborn than I am, passionate. Sofia Mariposa Diaz. She disappeared on March 11th, 1982.
A blindfolded Sophia, no longer pregnant, is led on stage by Sosa. She is handcuffed and gagged. Carlos enters. He watches Sophia.
People say I need to understand that her body may never be found, that I may never have that closure. And on some level, I know they're right. As much as I want it, closure is not given to the families of people who disappeared. I never thought I was one of them, a family member of a desaparecida. But I am, and slowly, maybe I'm coming to terms with that.
Sophia is pushed towards Carlos and then off stage, followed by Sosa and Carlos.
Apparently, when Diego disappeared, Sophia walked with Las Madres with his family and the other mothers. Elena says Sophia felt like she could sympathize with all the people there on a level she hadn't been able to before. Before it had been a measure of support, of unity, but suddenly she found herself among them.
Elena and Maria enter and stand on either side of Pablo. Both wear white scarves with Sophia's name on them.
Elena's children call me Tio Pablo now. They grasped that I was their cousin faster than any of the rest of us. Elena told them I was their cousin, and 3 seconds later, they called me Tio Pablo. I was more difficult. None of it made sense. And to be honest, most of it still doesn't. But this is my family now. My name is Pablo Diaz, and soy un hijo de una desaparecida. I am the son of a disappeared.
Pablo turns and walks off stage with his family. Lights slowly fade out. End of play.
Ladies and gentlemen, the cast and crew of Buenas Noches Mamá.
That was pretty cool.
And stream is ended.